Well, unfortunately, it is Ben Hutchens' last show on the Beat Reporters. So sad, but we're so happy you're going home and getting to cover your alma mater. But we're gonna miss you on the Beat Reporters, and I think the Beat Reporters fanatics out there are gonna miss you even more.
Man, I love the beat reporters fanatics. You guys are, the reason that we all have jobs and get to do this and talk some inside baseball. So I definitely feel the support, and I won't be far. I'll be covering Oklahoma State University for the Oklahoman, which is kind of where I grew up, and I'll see everybody October 31st in the tailgate lots.
Yeah, you'll be at Steve
Halloween,
Kemp's
baby.
tailgate, absolutely.
Steve Kemp,
Halloween,
I
but
have not seen the last of you, my friend.
sadly, no haunted forest for the last couple of years, Ben, to give you that. But that's all right.
Hey, everyone talks about all the injuries and stuff, and shoot, we'll get into the Toure, I guess, deal. But Ireland, Big 12 championship, Pop Tarts Bowl. There's been a lot of stuff happening in eventful 2 years. So I'm not here to take credit for it, but I'm also not here to not take credit for it. So you can blame me for the good and the bad, I guess.
Well, we will have a normal beat reporter show. We'll talk the Torre injury. We'll recap media day, but we've also got 5 items left on the wheel, and we're gonna complete the wheel. We're gonna talk about some of Ben's favorite memories in Iowa. We're gonna do all of that coming up right here on the Beat Reporters in the Northwest Bank Studios.
I'm Chris Williams from Cyclone Fanatic and a proud Iowa State graduate from the class of 2007. No one shows up like Iowa State fans. And Cyclones support Cyclones on and off the field. Your gift can provide scholarships to students, fund groundbreaking research. We could even drum up opportunities for the marching band. Visit MoveWhatMatters.com to learn how you can make an impact today.
That awesome Beat Reporters music. One last time for Ben Hutchens. By the way, just because Hutchens is leaving, yes, that takes a big dent out of the show. We're gonna have to rebuild a little bit, but we are going to the farm system and calling up Jackson Pence. So the Beat Reporters isn't going anywhere, although it will feel like it's leaving a little bit.
Pence knows
Yeah.
more ball than just about anybody. He'll do just great.
You need to send Ben like the intro music so he can just have it to reminisce. Just pull it up on his phone or his computer every now and then. Just be like, oh yes, the Beat Reporters.
Making my wake up alarm.
Yeah, throw it on the Bluetooth as you're riding down to Oklahoma, leaving Iowa in the sunset in the rearview mirror. But
And then Kelderman's tank comes in and it just blows out my speakers.
well, speaking of Kelderman, him
Look
and I
at
went
that.
to Stained on Monday night at the Iowa State Fair. It was a party. My first time ever being backstage at a concert. I was with Kelderman and some of his buddies backstage with like Aaron Lewis and Sid from Slipknot. It was the motley crew of individuals. I stood out a little bit, I think. But
Kelderman with the friendly gesture.
yeah, that was clearly towards the end of the show after. But no, in all seriousness, the reason Kelderman's able to do so many cool things and know so many famous people is because rednecks like Aaron Lewis and who knows who else utilize Kelderman services in Oskaloosa. And if people who have that much money and could really do anything they want to utilize Kelderman to help better their trucks, their campers, whatever it be, that should be a sign for you to do the same thing. So head up Kelderman Manufacturing down in Oski. We appreciate Kelderman, as always, for supporting the Beat Reporters. Appreciate him for taking me along to Stained. I'm on the outside. Good song. Aaron Lewis still has it. His voice is still pretty good, even though he was a screamo singer back in the 90s. Well, we should probably start here today with Killyan Toure, the injury that occurred out at the Damian Lillard camp over the weekend. We're not going to hash out too many thoughts on this. Bloom and I spent about 20-25 minutes talking about it on Williams and Bloom, so you can go and get a full deep dive, but we'll just give you the overview. Shoulder injury. They're not quite sure on the severity of it. However, it sounds that it'll probably be significant and miss significant time. Could that be 3 months? Could that be 5 months? Could that be the whole season? That will be info we find out here in the coming weeks, I'm sure, but certainly a massive hit towards Iowa State, a team that had already lost a freshman guard for the season and is missing Ryan Prather during the summer, another guard. So the guard depth was already dinged a little bit, and now Iowa State loses potentially their best player for next season.
Just a huge bummer of it. I mean, we just talked to Killyan. I mean, what a fun guy he used to talk to. He has been since the beginning, and just talked to him a couple of weeks ago, and he'd gone through a few things, a few minor health issues, it felt like, during the summer workouts, but seemed like he was in a good spot. And it's definitely, from a roster standpoint, very concerning for Iowa State, but obviously very concerning for him as a young man with a promising future and unfortunate event there at the Dame Lillard camp.
Yeah, remember, Rob, that day you're talking about when we talked to Killyan, this summer, he wasn't even scheduled to speak. He was just out in the lobby and came over to, introduce his parents to everybody and shake our hands, and he looked great. He looked healthy. He looked like a guy who had found his shooting stroke toward the end of last season and had finally maybe gotten over a little bit of those shoulder woes. And to have a setback at this point in the season is really tough. The timing of it, so interesting. TJ Otzelberger, I'm never going to doubt his ability to adapt on the fly. We think of him as this regimented, consistent guy, and that he is, but he's also somebody who has reinvented himself as a defensive specialist into an offensive, elite coach. So I'm never going to doubt his ability to adapt and, find solutions at this point in the season.
Yeah, it'll take work, and we think back to our conversation with Otzelberger back in July when it became announced that some judge in North Carolina passed a law that fifth-year players who got to college in 2023 were eligible to come back, and he got asked about it and said that they won't be evaluating it until there's official NCAA rules. So very careful wording, where Otzelberger didn't rule out bringing back one of those players that could potentially be eligible in the next month. I would assume will be eligible whenever that court case goes on. So Tamin Lipsey is a possibility. We'll see what happens. He is in an NBA organization right now and also recovering from an injury. And then there's also dozens of other players that will be on the free market, assuming that rule gets passed. And I anticipate Iowa State to go and pursue somebody, because at this point, depending on what Toure's status is, you're looking at Jaquan Johnson and Jamarian Bateman with Yusuf Gray as three ball-handling point guards, and then Leon Bond and Ryan Prather are two guys that can play the guard spot, but they're primarily going to be in the wing. So you would think that they go and pursue somebody that maybe doesn't play, but can play if someone else gets hurt, because there's still a possibility that somebody else could get injured, and at that point, really in trouble.
Tyrese wants to stick around Hilton for that exhibition game and dust off the old uniform for a little bit.
That'd be something else, right? He technically probably has eligibility left.
There are a lot of intriguing possibilities from guys in the last few years. I mean, obviously, but at best case scenario, it's not that serious for Toure, but there's so many moving parts with this that, and again, when you talk about court rulings, we've seen that those can be reversed, those can be challenged, those can be this and that. You just hope that whatever this ruling was actually stays in place, so people have clarity as they're making these, very life-altering decisions.
Yeah, no question. We'll continue to update at Cyclone Fanatic as we find out more information. But yeah, we'll direct you to Williams and Bloom for a more in-depth conversation. What we didn't do on Williams and Bloom, we didn't get too deep into Media Day. today. So we're going to do that right here. Ben, what was your favorite takeaway from Iowa State Football Media Day?
I was really fascinated by these players talking about getting to know their teammates and the roles of these team captains. There's like 30 guys on the leadership team, and all of these captains, leadership guys, will get up in front of the locker room or in front of the team and share their football journey, their testimony, how they got to Iowa State, and how that's really built the trust, how that's really bonded these guys together. I think that was maybe something that I took away. I'm working on, I guess, one final story about, everybody talks about all the change and the 70, 80 guys that are new with this team this year, but what are the elements that have stayed? Who are the pillars of the Cyclone team that, returned, and are there any similarities? And the similarity and the answer I got to that is it's a player-led group. The trust and the brotherhood is still there, which, is not something I think you can take for granted on a football field.
Well, and to your point, Ben, all these, Matt Campbell did have guys come up and tell their stories. One I can remember famously, and this is going to tie into one guy I'm writing about, Isaac Bobby Terrell. Eni Wazurike, Campbell was telling us all, his story so powerful, so powerful. We got to media day and asked Eni if he'd share. He's like, I don't really want to. So it was one of those things. But he also said one of the things that I believe Cody Jackson said when sharing his kind of harrowing and uplifting at the same time story, which is he said it's because everyone has stuff they've been going through, and I don't really want to highlight mine. I don't really want to showcase mine. But Terrell, famously nicknamed Bobby because of the character Bobby Bouchard, the hard-hitting and kind of weirdo, hair on fire Adam Sandler character in the 1998 comedy football movie night, The Waterboy, is he told me about being a freshman at Washington State and standing 6 feet tall. He's 6'2" now. And as he said, eating everything I could to get to 205 as a defensive tackle. Who told everyone I'm going to be a defensive end in the NFL. And he said, as you can imagine, there are a lot of people going to tell you can't do that. And where is he now? 6'2", 255, 7 sacks last season at Washington State as a defensive end, as an edge rusher. And that 7 sacks, by the way, is the most since Will McDonald had 11 and a half and Eni Wazurike had 9 in 2021 by a Cyclone defensive lineman, if that translates. So interesting character. I didn't want to dive because everyone talks about the nickname. I want to talk about his being one of 6 siblings, what his parents instilled in him. It all stemmed from his motor. And he said his motor comes from looking at himself in the mirror at 6 foot and barely trying to get to 205 and saying, yeah, I want to do this. And I think I can. And all of that ties together.
I've really enjoyed the last couple of weeks where it's shifted from what's this defense going to look like and who's going to start on the offensive line. And sure, we still hear about that and we still talk about that. But I do think it shifted a little more to some of the feature stories on, like, how did player X get here? What's this player's background? What did he overcome? And I think that has really helped people just engage a little more with the team and be, I don't know, that's what's great about sports is you learn about the players, and the past staff, you would have stories that you just knew. Like you knew where Dominique Orange came from, and he was on the team for 4 years. And then you knew Brock Purdy's story of getting the late offers from Alabama and Texas A&M. But with this team, everything was thrown together so fast that you're just trying to learn names and numbers. And now you guys are in the good spot of teaching everybody about the journeys and getting people engaged.
Not that I have anything about like crazy where he's from or anything like that, but did you get to talk to Zamir Hawk? I mean, I'm never going to pass up on that opportunity.
He was awesome.
He's great. Just one funny thing I heard from him was he was so happy he doesn't have to play against Jalen Rader.
Yeah.
For another year in a row. He just talked about like why is he so hard to tackle, and he described Rayner as a wide-bodied, strong quarterback. And I think everything I'm hearing about this narrative that Jalen Raynor is a slight, small, fragile quarterback, it is, I think, completely overblown. I don't get that sense when I'm around him, and I don't get that sense from when I've talking to people who have tried to tackle him.
Yeah, well, you're not able to make 36 consecutive starts as a FBS quarterback if you're fragile, right? I mean, he is a fascinating guy, though, and I talked to him relating to the chemistry pieces we're seeing, people giving their testimony, like you talked about, Ben, me sharing some, you sharing some from what you learned, and you too, Jake. I asked Raynor if the fact that so many guys come from so many places all at once can actually enhance a team's chemistry, because you have to work so hard to connect, right? Because it's not like, oh, I knew that guy from last year. I mean, he has Tyler Fortenberry, he has Coach Heckendorf who came over with him, but in most cases, there are guys outside of the Washington State guys, primarily on defense, that or Iowa State guys that came back. You don't know anything, so you really do need to be in that mode, that vulnerability mode that Jesse Bobbitt talked about a couple of weeks ago. And Raynor said for him it was about it being intentional, and outside of the famously learning everyone's names and quickly upon joining the team in January, he talked about that intentionality being as simple as, I make a real point to not be on my phone. And when I'm with guys, I just want to be, hey guys, let's be getting to know each other. Let's not be talking like everyone always is, and there's the phone out to the side. And, everything is for him so well plotted out, in part because he is such a veteran. And as guys have said, that people gravitate toward him. He's not the only player that other players gravitate toward, but yeah, he's a fascinating individual, in addition to the type of quarterback that I think fits this offense in year one under Tyler Roll about as well as it could.
So everybody learned that story about Jalen Raynor. He goes in and he names everybody. That's the first thing you knew about him. Mm-hmm. And I have a big story coming out. Maybe it'll be published after my last day, but it's about how Jalen Raynor's smile makes him the face of Iowa State football. And you see how he waves and, interacts with everybody from the trainers to his coaches. And I think it's really funny. I mean, he learned everybody's names. And guys, he's leveled up. Now he's handing out nicknames. He's like Slimgin. They call him Sergeant Slimgin just because he got the military buzz cut. Braden Simonson is Big Zaw because he used to have long hair that Jalen Raynor thought made him look like a pizza delivery guy. He calls Keith Heckendorf Batman, and Keith said, I'm not even really sure on a lot of days how that came about. But, Raynor has, he's leveled up. Now he's handing out nicknames, which I think just tells you everything and reinforces what we've been talking about off season with why guys follow him.
The nickname guy is a very important guy to have. I feel like every stage of life, someone's got the nickname guy. I was never that, but it's a role for somebody, and I think the quarterback having that role is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
A couple other takeaways that I had. I always just enjoyed talking to Carson Willick, and he's someone who has really good perspective as a returner from the last staff, and he said something that I figured he would say, but just how much better of a fit defensively this new scheme is for him, and that's a big reason why he stayed around. And I do think as the season goes on, people will start to realize that, sure, there were some players that left to go to Penn State because they were following Matt Campbell, but there's also some players that left because different schemes fit different players. And there were some players that stayed because different schemes fit different players. And I think Carson Willick and Bo Goodwin are absolutely two linebackers that will be better linebackers in the Jesse Bobbitt defense than the John Haycock defense. And I just thought his perspective on that was pretty interesting.
Isn't he a friend of the pod too?
He is.
Did you guys run into him at a Casey's or something, at a convenience store of some sort? Yeah.
Yeah, we could throw that on the wheel.
Well, his story, I just wanted to say real quick. I knew everyone knows how often he's been injured and how that's been an issue for him throughout his career. But he opened up a bit more, and maybe other people knew this, but I don't remember knowing it. But I'm also older than you guys by quite a bit, so I forget things a little bit easier. But he opened up about one of his injuries that I think his last one that was really bad, they were talking about him possibly losing his leg.
Wow.
And that's a pretty sobering thing to go through. So that's, again, ties into all these guys sharing their stories. And it is funny because a lot of them are injury stories or scary syndrome stories like Cody Jackson had. I can't think of it or pronounce correctly off the top of my head. So but it was so much to the point where I asked Omari Hayes, "Hey, what's your story? What's one you?" And she says, "I don't really got a story, man." He said, well, I guess I've got this. And then he mentioned a bad injury he had. So this is part of the vulnerability. This is part of the guy sharing. This is what I've overcome. This is my why. And then we heard a lot about the why from Campbell and Haycock and all those guys too, right? I mean, so that's another tie-in. There's always overlap in coaching philosophies and some differences and some similarities, and that's certainly an area of overlap. The player-led thing that you guys have talked about.
That's good stuff about Willick. From an X's and O's standpoint, people are wondering why this scheme maybe fits him better. He plays that weak side linebacker, which is more reliant on his speed. And that's the one thing that, he really had throughout the last couple seasons, even an edge on other talented linebackers in that room. And that's also the position that Jimmy Rogers played at SDSU. Jimmy was a weak side linebacker, who could use his speed. And I just think back to hearing about Jimmy Rogers texting Carson Willick, specific stuff about the scheme and how much maybe that is going to benefit him. Maybe is Carson able to be, a Jimmy Rogers out there on the football field? He's going to be somebody I'm going to watch this season.
Yeah, one thing that I like too is with Willick, it's just a guy who's been through so much and is going to be able to bridge the gap between, hey, what's worked here and what hasn't worked here. And I just think, as someone who's seen as much as he has and has had as many experiences he has, I think it's a really cool position for him to be in, especially when you consider that he potentially has another year left as someone who could play 2 years in this system. And I think he's a really important vet that they're able to keep around.
Yeah, I walked up and you were, he was explaining that to you guys. What was his reason for it? He's going off of the old rules because this will be his 5th year, I believe, playing college football.
So yeah, he's got another medical red shirt on top of his actual red shirt, is I believe how he put it.
Gotcha.
But speaking of injuries, so I know that there is an open wound and there's certainly salt still being poured in it with the Killyan Toure injury. And I know there's a lot of why Iowa State, why this, why that. On the basketball side, absolutely. There have been some devastating timed injuries, I think, is the biggest thing with it. On the football side of it, I'm not going to jinx it or anything, but I really do think that the injuries of the past 3 years have been a product of the defense that they played. And I don't think it was bad luck that all the linebackers got hurt in 2024. I don't think it was bad luck that Malik Verdon and Beau Freeler consistently dealt with injuries. I think that was a product of you were asking linebackers in a 3-man front to be extra defensive linemen and fill gaps. Whereas in this defense, linebackers will be running sideline to sideline. And injuries will still happen. They will. But I don't think there's any coincidence that the question was always, why is it just this one position group that keeps getting hurt? And I think a lot of it has to come down to Carson Willick's not a huge guy. And when you're filling the gap and you're getting taken out by a left guard, or when you're Bo Goodwin and you're getting blocked by a right tackle, it's just a lot different than I think this current system. And the same thing with the safeties. The safeties will be used a lot more in pass coverage than they will be in run coverage. Whereas in the 3-3-5, especially for that star position between Beau Freeler and Malik Verdon, those guys were almost stopping the run as much as they were stopping the pass. And at some point, it's science. Like a guy can only take so many hits against a guy that's bigger than him. So there will still be injuries. It's football. We already saw one with Braden Alls in the fall or in the spring. But I I don't know if it will be, if this defense is designed to have as many wear and tear injuries as the previous one, at least at those two positions.
And it's a different football philosophy too, right? And we'll see how that plays out with less Olympic style weightlifting and more of Rogers' efficiency of movement is how he put it to us in Frisco. So we'll see if, the general football philosophy, I mean, even watching those guys stretch and stuff, I think I was talking to Seals, who had been to practice before. Bill Seals had been to, practices in the Matt Campbell era, and he told me it looked completely different from anything that he had seen before. So we'll see how it all happens. I mean, there could always be a chance for a, Jeremiah Cooper torn ACL, or something, like we saw with last year. It's football at the end of the day, but now we can maybe start to collect a sample size or get an idea for where the stress will be on this defense.
Yeah, ligaments are going to happen. It's football.
Yeah, I would definitely say that there was some bit of bad luck involved when it felt like it. But yeah, I completely get what you're saying, Jake, because I mean, early on, they didn't get hit in some of those, right? And I mean, some of the guys who got hurt are the Caleb Bacons, your prototype big linebacker that fit that scheme. But yeah, I mean, to your point, the stuff they've talked about, keeping guys on their feet despite hard-hitting practices, we didn't hear that talk, at least, in the Campbell era, about how that was really important, because it's when guys go to the ground where those freak injuries that you don't want to have happen occur. So just a different approach. And yeah, as you said, the way they size it, the way they scheme it, it could certainly make it less injury prone. Certainly the recent years. I know early on they were fortunate they didn't have, I mean, you had your great guys worth stuff and here and there, but I mean, yeah, the approach is definitely totally different. And knock on wood, you're exactly right, Jake, that stuff is, as a matter of course, kind of minimized in this system.
And that's not to say there couldn't be a correction somewhere, because Iowa State's changing the way they play offense as well. It's not going to be a zone running game anymore. It's going to be a power running game, and that could shift that to the running backs, for example, or it could shift it to the tight ends, who will be blocking more than they'll be receiving. So that every philosophy has give and take. So that's not to say that Jimmy Rogers is playing injury-free football, because it's football. Stuff's going to happen.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Let's thank Farm Story Meats. That's Kelderman. That's Farm Story Meats. Although, who doesn't mind seeing Kelderman once again? That picture, I forgot, that was directed for Hassel. So he was sending that to Chris Hassel. But Farm Story Meats will be represented in the tailgating lots, probably on Halloween when Ben Hutchens comes back for the Iowa State-Oklahoma State game. Build out your tailgating menu with their tailgating bundle. It's right there for you. FarmStoryMeats.com, locally raised and locally cut. It's all the best, and it's locally owned right here in the great state of Iowa. FarmStoryMeats.com. I think we got to spin the wheel. We've got 5 topics to get to, and we're just going to do them all right here. Some of them we might blow through quick. All right, so this one, Rob, do you remember the Phantom 3?
I am completely blanking on the Phantom 3.
So
I need a refresher.
This would have been like 2004, 2005. I, of course, did not live this, but I have become well aware of it. So this was, I'm sure someone will correct, but I believe I have the general skeleton of it. Kansas gets fouled in Allen Fieldhouse, and this would have been in the second half, I believe. They go to the line to shoot 2 free throws, but the ref mistakenly says it's a 1-and-1. So I guess Iowa State went to the line to shoot the free throw. Iowa State misses the first free throw. Kansas gets the rebound, goes down, shoots a 3. But I don't think Iowa State was moving. And they make the 3. Then they all huddle and like, okay, never mind. It was supposed to be shooting 2 free throws. Let's go back and shoot another free throw. But they kept the 3-pointer on the board.
Yeah.
And it ended up being a close game, crucial call.
Yeah, lost in overtime. Iowa State lost in overtime by 1 point. I remember a decent amount of this now in part because I went back and looked on YouTube because I wasn't covering the Cyclones at the time, but certainly I was interested. I was covering high school hoops mostly at the time and UNI football and about 12 other things, just not Iowa State. Yeah, it was Jared Homan. You know, Homan is at the center of so many weird things. Such a great player for Iowa State and an interesting cat. But yeah, how in the world? I mean, that's such a this happened to us because we're Iowa State type of thing, and they're Kansas type of thing, right? How I can't remember how they explained why the three kept on the board. I can't remember if there was an apology letter because certainly that's a mistake. If it's supposed to be no. We got the second foul shot coming up, and it's not just like, well, we let it go, so we got to count it. You know, that's just a flub. That's just a mistake that allowed Kansas to escape and win that game in overtime. Another gut punch.
That is so bizarre. Kind of reminds me of the 5th down game with Colorado. Like,
oh yeah,
you know, like how does that happen? I mean, and we're all human. We all make mistakes, but in that instance, it couldn't happen. You know, it can't.
Or you got to fix it, right? You let it go. Okay, hey, that should not count. You got to take that off the board. Let the fans in the fog boo, and all that stuff. But that they'll know. Yeah, well, of course we should get a 3.
Right.
Ah, shucks.
It was 2 shots. You know,
they caught us.
Yeah, you know. So, yeah, that was. Yeah, that was yet another tough one of many tough ones that have occurred in that building.
I guess that would have been Roy Williams on the KU sideline, you know?
Yeah, it would have been either late Roy, early Bill.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that ballpark.
Right on the edge, yeah.
Man. Wow. And Eustace, who was coaching Iowa State at that time?
Would have been Wayne Morgan, I think.
Yeah, it entered the Morgan era.
C-Dub, when you write your next book, ask about that. I want to hear more about that game.
That would be incredible content. Because I think Jake Sullivan would have been on the team. Maybe Kurt Stinson,
Blaylock.
Yeah. So that's Williams' era right there. Those are all guys that he knows. Book number 2 coming out. All right, 4 to go. We have 4 just dynamite topics left on the board. We maybe saved the 4 best for last. 9-7 in Lincoln. Well, Ben, are you ready for another Paul Rhodes?
Hold on. Get your accent right. Get your pacing right. Give it to me like a Paul Rhodes.
I'm so proud to be your football coach. How's that?
That was great, Rob.
That was great. So 2009, first year of Paul Rhodes. Iowa State goes. Man, they were 2-10 the year before, 1-11, one of the two. Great season, all things considered, and it's all capped off by Iowa State going into Lincoln to win for the first time in I don't know how long, off of 8 turnovers in a 9-7 game with even more stories because Austin Arnaud, the starting quarterback, was sick. There was the flu going through the Iowa State locker room. I believe John Walters has told me, and John is about the most optimistic guy. And I remember him telling me a story of him and Heft driving over there and saying that this might be the least probable a win has ever been, or something along those lines. Heft and Walters were not confident whatsoever, and they wouldn't shock the world.
So they won it off a safety? A touchdown into safety? How'd they get to 9?
Oh, that's
3 field goals would be a pretty sick, fitting way.
No,
for
they
that one,
did
too.
score a touchdown.
maybe a missed extra point.
Yeah, Jerome Tiller.
Yep, Jerome Tiller was the starter.
And you outside of the turnovers, this is the Jerome Tiller game.
So yeah,
That's for the lonely touchdown. He
a field goal, a touchdown, and a missed extra point gets you to 9-7.
Yeah, and the scoring was finished in the first half.
Yep.
And most of Nebraska's turnovers came in the red zone, and a few came where it looked like they were about to score a touchdown. But notably, as I look at it, Iowa State did only give up 362 yards, but yeah, 8 turnovers. You just don't see that happen. And again, Jerome Tiller was not a celebrated quarterback. To put it mildly, with no disrespect to Jerome Tiller, he worked hard on the football team, but yeah, Arnaud was the guy, and it was a surreal game. And I know from a Nebraska perspective, they just couldn't believe it. I mean, they owned Iowa State in this series, and they were super confident, of course, but you can't account for 8 turnovers. And it just, from an Iowa State perspective, you're laughing as they keep coming. And in Nebraska, they're just slack jawed and they're getting that whatever mile stare just because they're like, are you kidding me? Another one. Oh my God, we lost. We can't score in the second half on this team. But a nice win in the Road Zero. And oddly enough, I think Iowa State improved to 5-3 at the time, and Nebraska fell to 4-3. So moved not past them in the standings, but yeah. Maybe equally bizarre as the Phantom 3 at the Fog, except nothing fishy going on. Yeah.
Well, should we hear from our good friend Paul Rhodes?
Yes.
We love you! Got people tired everywhere. You got people sore everywhere. I couldn't be prouder. I could not be proud. No. I am so proud! Listen to me! I am so proud to be your brother!
What a stirring moment.
Oh, incredible. Such a... It's hard to put into perspective when you look at the numbers. Like, there is nothing numbers-wise that's impressive about the Paul Rhodes era, especially when you consider to what came after. But I don't think you can put a number on, I guess, what he did to galvanize the fan base and put Iowa State in a map. Like, Paul Rhodes was a story in college football because of his energy, and he was a lightning rod, and that's the first real Paul Rhodes moment as the head coach of the Cyclones.
Yeah, and I mean, fitting some of the things that happened in the Rhodes era. I mean, you can say maybe their best team was completely derailed by injury. Their chance at I believe it was 2012. And there was a year that Jake Knott played until his shoulder gave out, and he went around thanking all of us, and he's tearful, and he's this and that. Like, what if he had stayed healthy all the time, and a few other things here and there? But he did. I mean, all the facilities upgrades at Iowa State, that's because Paul Rhodes got a fan base that was really down in the dumps, excited about football again, and excited, no disrespect to Matt Campbell, to get to 6-6. And that was a big deal given how things had been, and there had only been just snippets of success along the way. Earl Bruce and the couple breakthrough years with Dan McCarney. And so it's goosebumps when you see Rhodes, and he gets that little stutter, right? It's like and then boom, there it comes. It's a rousing moment for sure.
Yeah, that was his best. I'm so proud. I still think his overall best speech was the Oklahoma State one. I don't care if you're rich or poor. I don't care if you're black or white. I don't care if you're here from state of Iowa, California, state of Texas. What I care is that we are one team. And for that, men. But that delivery of I'm so proud is it was on the poster of Iowa State football for like 7 straight years.
Yep.
It was, yeah, Paul Rhodes, the gift that keeps on giving. And we're not done with him yet because we've got 2 more Paul Rhodes era topics on the wheel.
Unfortunately, one is one's
infamous.
Yes,
and
one
we got
infamous and one is enigmatic.
David Irving, maybe, just maybe, pound for pound the most talented player of the Paul Rhodes era that never panned out. For one reason specifically. Rob, I will let you introduce to Ben what Visha is, because that's where this story really starts.
Visha was an incredible event that happened at Iowa State for a long, long, long time. The things I remember as a kid from going to Visha was they had these magnificent, I think they still do the cherry pies at the food sciences thing, these little mini pies, and we'd get them. And they'd have a great parade and everything. And I think I marched in that parade once when I was in high school with some people. And so-called riots, not one riot, but riots eventually doomed Visha. And David Irving was involved infamously in one such riot in 2014. And don't know everything that he did, but they got a famous picture, and I can't remember if it was a register, but he's walking around with an uprooted stop sign. And there he is, Iowa State's stud defensive end, walking down with this, again, I guess you could call it vandalized stop sign that he's carrying around amid the mayhem. And eventually had to be dismissed. And they had another promising D tackle, Rodney Coe, that couldn't stop getting in trouble, and he eventually got dismissed. But fortunately, it was towards the end of the Rhodes era, and it felt like there were some concessions made to these guys. Like, it went beyond 3 strikes, and I think that rubbed some of the teammates the long way. But David Irving, you know what he went on to. Maybe you can talk about what he went on to do.
Went on to be one of the better defensive ends for the Dallas Cowboys of the last decade or so. Like, wasn't DeMarcus Ware or anything like that, but he had a really, really good 3 or 4 year stretch as a D end for the Cowboys. And you look back at what was the biggest weakness of the Rhodes era, it was probably the defensive line. And that's a big what if. Not a Will McDonald level talent, but probably Jaquan Bailey type in that realm. And you lose one of the most talented football players of the last 20 years to come through Iowa State due to the old riots of Visha.
And that wasn't the only thing with Irving, who was always fun to talk to. I talked to a former coach whose name I will remain anonymous, about David Irving and what he told me about. And David Irving, by the way, quit football to focus on a career in cannabis, I believe it was. Or to focus on it was cannabis related, whatever the whole thing was. But this coach told me that, because we talked to Irving, he was very engaging. He was a fun guy to talk to, and this guy sort of told me he was too smart for his own good, in the sense that he could find ways to get away with things creatively, I guess, one way to put it. And it didn't serve him well, and it didn't serve the team well. Again, at a position of need, to be in that spot. But certainly a colorful character, and I'm glad he had a fun guy to talk to. I'm glad he had a good stint in the NFL. But I believe he just up and quit because he just didn't feel like doing it anymore.
And he went on to play for my Dallas Cowboys, and of course won nothing there. Because
I
why
remember
else?
watching
The Cowboys don't win anything.
I watched a lot of David Irving growing up, and I didn't realize or make the connection that he started at Iowa State. Did he get kicked off the team or dismissed or let go and go play somewhere else, or just pursue professional football?
Oh yeah, he was finally dismissed, and he'd had other issues, and that's what I was alluding to, with just the things that he just. And then in the NFL, I was wrong to say he did quit, but he had been suspended for violating its substance abuse policy. What could have been? He was only 25 at the time, but.
I went down the Visha rabbit hole one day, and boy, they had some big musical headliners, Rob. Some big names that you would have never thought came to Iowa State.
There was once a time where they brought in the Black Eyed Peas, who were then like the next big thing. And most of the students, being, I guess it's Ames, Iowa, in a food desert, behind the times, they were like, what's this? And the Black Eyed Peas would blow up and have #1 hits all over the place after that. But Visha was I was going to say something else, da bomb, for a long time, both for fun after dark and fun for the family, until the after dark stuff created too many unsavory headlines and situations.
We got 2 to go. Two classics. I'm hoping we just get Steel Jance last, because that would, that's fitting to get Steel Jance last. The Jared Utah 30-point first half. It's right there in the title. 2015 Cyhawk game. Really the first signature game of the Steve Prohm era. Iowa State ranked number 4, Iowa unranked, George Niang, Monte Morris, Naslong, Matt Thomas. Just a big-time Iowa State team. And Iowa walks in, and Jared Utah torches Iowa State. Doesn't miss, I guess not physically, but for the most part, doesn't miss a ton of shots in the first half, and Iowa builds a massive 20-point first half lead. Utah scores 30 in the first half, and then Hilton Magic steps in. Iowa State comes crawling back. They switch Matt Thomas onto Utah, who generally wasn't, at that time at least, thought of as a great defender heading into his junior season. He, and with the help of a couple other players, shut down Utah. He scores 2 points in the second half. Iowa State storms back to win, take the lead with 10 seconds left for the first time as Monte Morris hits a floater, and that will always be known as the Utah game by both fan bases. By Iowa State fans as, I can't believe that Utah did that in the first half, and by Iowa fans, why couldn't he sustain any of it in the second half? And it goes down as one of the more iconic Cyhawk basketball games.
No doubt. And Jameel McKay had a huge game as well. I think Monte and he both scored 20 points. Iowa State went on a 30-11 run down the stretch to pull within one, and Monte hits that game winner, as you said. I mean, it was wild because the Cyclones were considered to be, they were highly ranked. They had a lot of talent, as you said, Jake. And for them to struggle that way against that Iowa team, I think the fans at Hilton were shocked, frankly. And Utah was unbelievable. I mean, it was almost unconscious. Anytime he got the ball and shot, it was like, oh, that's going in. And then, the second half, nothing. And Iowa State makes one of its iconic Hilton Magic fueled runs and pulls it out. I don't know if it was when it was pointed, but McKay called Monte big game tie. So, big game Tay. So, definitely an iconic game. Peter Jock with the big game as well for the Hawkeyes.
Yeah, that was a crazy game.
What was the Curtis Jones against BYU in Kansas City? 22 in...
Yeah, it was like 25 in 4 minutes or something like that, or 22 and... So, yeah, it wasn't a Kurt Jones... Like, that's a heater. I would just say the Utah thing is an entire half, whereas it was just consistent 30 points and a half, where Jones is more of the like, it was within one TV timeout pretty much is what makes his stretch so crazy.
Was that the one where Keyshawn Gilbert is sitting adjacent to Curtis and someone's bringing up exactly what Curtis's heater was like, and he just goes,
yeah, in the locker room.
Yeah, I bet Utah didn't want to go in for halftime. He's like, get me back out.
Yeah, no kidding. But yeah, another famous big comeback at Hilton Coliseum. And that leaves us with one topic left on the wheel. We'll spin it.
You gotta spin it.
Ceremonial.
Oh yeah. We were talking about Steel Jance the other day at the golf course, Jake.
It's Steel Jance. It's Steel Jance. Rob, I feel like this is yours. You covered him. You saw Steel in all his glory.
Yeah, he and his mystery. One of the most... They made up T-shirts that I can't remember. What did they come up with? Like a steel pants. They put a Superman kind of thing there. And here's a guy. You talk about a name for a quarterback, right? And this guy comes in. It famously, I believe it was first reported in the Ames Tribune that he slept in his car in the City College in I think San Francisco, as he's winding his way through college, and ends up on Iowa State's radar. Gets here, has a couple of incredible games, Cyhawk Hero game, uh, and he has all these other games where he just fumbles sometimes without being touched. I mean, Steele Jance was a character. I mean, he truly was like a comic book character, and a hero at times, and a zero at times. But I think definitely remembered as an icon, despite never really putting it together for Iowa State. And I think maybe I've said it on the pod before, but my favorite thing when I interviewed him was I asked him what he did for fun, because he seems like kind of a serious guy, and he just said, "Yeah, I don't do any video games or anything like that. I just got my Bible, and that's pretty much it. And I could pack up my things and put them in a little tiny bag, and when I leave, no one will ever know that I was here." And that was Steele Jance in a nutshell. Famously, we requested him after a game, and Tom Crichel, the SID at the time, beloved Tom Crichel, who now often does the PA, and it tells us no cheering in the press box. We want to cheer. Great. Go outside.
That's him?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Tom came back and he said, "I don't know where he went. His clothes are in his locker." So, Steele Jance, international man of mystery.
Well, Rob, you left out the best part. His family's
Oh, yeah,
fellow
the
names.
truck. Yeah.
So,
there's truck, there's
his dad is named Fox.
Fox.
He's got a brother named Wolf, another brother named Stig, a brother named Truck, and a brother named Brogan, which Brogan is by far the most normal, although not a very normal name.
We could have run into that in Ireland. It's like, oh, there's you're about to end, his name is Brogan. But yeah, just again, incredible in moments, great arm, and just awful in moments too. Like I think the last time he played for Iowa State, he was running around with the football with like a loaf of bread, and it just kind of dropped it for a fumble. I don't know if that's his last playing time. That's my last memory of Steele Jance. But also, I famously tried to track him down frequently and didn't. But then the wide right natty light guys did track him down, and I was incensed because I put a lot of time into my Steele Jance, and it come so close so many times, and didn't land my white whale.
He was the 2011 Oklahoma State hero, right? Or one of them.
He actually didn't play that game. It would have been Jared Barnett.
Okay.
Jared Barnett.
So,
Yeah.
so Steele would have been the 2011 Cyhawk hero. He famously went 2-0 against Iowa. One of the games was played really well. It was a high-scoring game. The other was one of the classic, I think, 10-7 or
Grinders.
13-10 Iowa State games at Kinnick. But yeah, he that's the thing with Steele, is he's remembered as this folk hero, but he went a couple games where he's the starter, then he'd get benched, then Jared Barnett would get benched, and then it was Steele time again, and then Steele and Barnett both get benched, and it's Sam B. Richardson. And that's my lasting memory of Jance, is that Sam B. Richardson came in at the end of 2012, and I think was clearly better than both of them, and he looked the part. And then you get to the Liberty Bowl, where I think Iowa State was up 10-0 or something like that. Richardson gets hurt. Jance comes in, throws a pick six, and he's not really heard of again until he appeared on the CF After Dark podcast like 4 years ago. So it almost went a decade without hearing anything from Steele Jance.
Yeah, I got a shout out. He was on our former CF pod, Fun Pod, Kicking It with Jeff Woody and
Oh, that's right.
and Grant Mahoney, and they got him. I believe Wide Right had talked to him as well. So I was just the one guy who never got to talk to Steele. Maybe he didn't like me sharing the story about him packing all his things up, and no one would know that he was ever there. But my lasting memory is one of many times that he had to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat against the University of Northern Iowa. He makes this incredible throw, and Josh Lenz makes this incredible catch for them to win a thriller in probably a season opener against the Panthers.
Well, the wheel has concluded. We have taught Ben everything he needs to know about the history of Iowa State athletics. There's still probably a lot of meat on the bone, but we we got through about 40 topics this offseason, and it was a fantastic segment. Got so many people that complimented it, so appreciate everyone for listening. Appreciate Ben for playing along.
Jake, that was such a good summary. Are we still paused? That's what it says in my top left.
No, I think we're good. We're recording.
Okay, so sorry. Well, it's been a pleasure. Every time I come on, I get a free master's in cyclonology, and you guys put up with my, questions about what's going on, and rolling with you guys has been so fun. So I'm thankful for the opportunity.
It's been mutual, yeah. I just want to say, Ben, the one thing I've said before, but I'll say it again. What you brought to the beat is this curiosity that those of us who've been doing it for a long time, a large scale curiosity that you can get tunnel vision on this job, and you have really helped me again have that bigger picture curiosity versus I can have a lot of curiosity when I'm digging into this feature or this and that, but you've come in with just the why is it like this, and do a story on it. And it's like, wow, that's really interesting, the approach you took to that. And I've been doing it for so long, I've been so set in my ways, as it were, that I wouldn't even think of that. So you've enlivened this beat for everyone. So I'm glad you'll still be on the Big 12 beat, but we'll miss you on this one, and particularly on this show.
Yeah, well, I couldn't say it any better than Rob did. We'll miss you a lot, and it's been a great year of the Beat Reporters. This was right about the time last year that we started the show and brought you on. So it's been an honor, Ben. But yeah, we'll still see you around at Jack Trice Stadium and Hilton Coliseum and Gallagher Iba Arena. There's still time, but it's definitely been a blast doing a year on this program.
October 30th, the night before OSU comes up here, I will bring a lawn chair and be chilling, in the RV lots, I'm sure. Look, we have to give some shout outs here before I leave. And number one, it's got to be Steve Kemp. There is nobody who follows the Beat Reporters podcast more closely than Steve Kemp. We love you, man. Thanks for all the texts and stuff, and can't wait to see you. My buddy Matt, he leads our small group, and he gets all of his Iowa State news from the Beat Reporters. This is the one show
that's awesome.
He carves out time for. So thanks for listening, Matt. Kelderman also, thanks for letting us do this whole thing. And golly, you're a hoot, man. So it's been a pleasure. When you think about Ireland and the NCAA tournaments and all the meals and stuff. Guys, it's been a blast. These last 2 years, you've shown me what it means to be an Iowan. Rob, we got to take that picture at that farmhouse.
Oh yeah, yeah, at the Grant Wood House. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's been such a pleasure rolling with you guys. You've shown me what it really means to be Iowans, and I'm just so thankful for the platform.
Well, you'll be an Iowan forever, Ben. Even
Yes.
living down in Oklahoma. That's the great part about this state. Once you're here for a little bit, you're here forever. So you always got a home at CF. You always got a home up in Iowa.
Well, thanks so much. They say you want to be on first name basis with people, but at CF you want to be on a last name basis. You want to be Hutchens, you want to be Williams, you want to be Bloom, you want to be Brend. So I'm thankful that we'll forever be on a last name basis, boys.
Well, Ben, it's been a pleasure. The Oklahoman, that's where you can find Ben's work here in the future. And I love reading other Big 12 columnists, so we'll be reading Oklahoma State stuff every day from Hutchens at the Oklahoman. For now, this has been Rob Gray, Jake Brend, and Ben Hutchens on the Beat Reporters here in the Northwest Bank Studios. I'm sure we'll have you back on the week of the Oklahoma State game, so you don't have to go too long without hearing Ben right here on the Cyclone Fanatic Podcast Network. We'll be back next week, and I think Jackson Pence will be with us. This has been the Beat Reporters.